Hello, my name is Andrew Williams, and today we're going to be speaking to someone who has served the Church of God by Faith for over 50 years, but nearly 50 years as a deacon. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. What is your name?
George Bruce,
And how old are you?
86.
86, wow. And where were you born?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. And where were you raised?
I was raised in Detroit.
Okay. Now, can you tell me a little bit about growing up and how you got to Detroit before coming to Rochester?
Oh, well, I was raised by my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And we migrated out of Tennessee into Detroit.
Okay. And I understand that you served in the military,
Yes, sir.
and this is while you were in Detroit.
Yes, sir.
What armed branches did you serve in?
Well, I served in two branches. I served in the Korean War. I was in the Army, 4 years and 16 days. And I switched over and went to the Air Force, a different branch, almost 3 years.
Now, how is it that you could make a switch between branches?
Well, I was discharged
Okay.
from the first one and re-enlisted in the second one. And that let them know that I was a different branch of service.
I see. And then you relocated to Rochester, New York.
Yes, sir.
And what prompted that? Yes.
Oh, well, I guess it's more or less we're looking at a better way of living. And that's why we kind of got together and talked about it, me and my brother. And we thought it'd be a better land, a better place to live and to raise our children.
Did you know anybody in Rochester when you moved here?
No, just by introduction, and this is what you call the name, this is,
Okay.
nothing that was down the road, you know what I'm saying, for 10, 15 years.
Now, what year did you come to Rochester?
I came to Rochester from Detroit in January 1957.
1957. Okay. When you got here, what kind of work did you do?
No work. I didn't have no job, nobody. I didn't know anybody. And, well, let me throw this in. I was a slickster.
Can you explain that?
Well, I was a, card dealer. That was pretty much what I did.
Okay. How did you get to join or come to join the Church of God by Faith?
Well, to my knowledge, you understand, that's been a long time ago. It seemed like to me, when I looked at other people, and they said they were from Church of God by Faith, I hadn't joined yet, but I was looking and didn't know what to do because I didn't know anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, you understand what I mean? I saw some people, some things that I liked in some people that belonged to that organization. So I said, well, let me take a look-see. And I guess one or two of the members said that invited me in.
I see.
And that was the thing that drawed me to the church.
Okay. Now, when you went to Church of God by Faith, it was then located on Troop and Ford Street, correct?
181 Truth Street.
Yes. And who was the pastor at that time?
At that time, I think it was Elder Eugene Kemp.
Okay. When were you appointed a deacon, and was it by Elder Kemp?
No, long story, but it is Elder Kemp was the pastor, and so I visited the church by invitation, and so I said, well, I was looking at the brethren, how they were dressed, and what mannerism that they had, and so I guess I thought I wanted to look like them in order to be one of them. And so that's how I did. I just went on. And one of the members on the first day that they invited me to the altar. You know how they do. And okay, I didn't make it over. And I came back the second night, same thing. And so the third night, which was Saturday night, you understand what I mean? Everything bursted loose, and here I come. I accepted the Holy Ghost, and I would start kicking from then on.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, when you were on Troop Street, Troop and Ford, 181 Troop, you were part of the group that marched over to 230 Adams Street.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me anything about that? Do you remember?
Well, it's just just a march and prayer, and we made it over to the next stop.
Okay. What lessons have you learned as a deacon?
Well, one thing is hush your mouth, for one thing. And it was a situation wherein sometimes you can say things a little too. So it's a pattern that you follow. To me it seemed like, and so I tried to follow as much as I could until they finally came to me and asked me some of the similar questions, and so I yielded to their information, and that's where I became a member of the church, but not a deacon right away, though.
I understand.
Yeah.
Who were some of your role models as deacons in the church?
One main man that I know of, and I liked him, he was Deacon Hunter Child.
Okay. All right. Now, when you came here, you were a single man, but you ended up marrying the late Deaconess Archie Bruce.
Yeah.
How do you remember meeting her?
Well, as far as I know, I don't know every little clinch, but my wife met a young lady by the name of Ruth Ruff. At the time, it was Cody. And her and my wife, introduced themselves as far as I know, and they became friends. And from then on, it just kept progressing. And so after a while, it was a friendship wherein it was all buckled and screwed together.
I see. Okay. Now, when you got married, you were settled in Rochester by that time. Were you employed at that point?
At that point, no.
Okay. Where did you work and retire from?
Okay, when I first started a job, I worked it for the railroad, but make no mistake about that. The railroad, it wasn't on the tracks doing rails and stuff like that. It was inside. It was doing repair work on trains and stuff like that. That they had wrecks and different stuff like that. And so it was the model car shops, they called it. It wasn't the railroad per se when you talk to them about it. That's the way that I got in that way.
Now, what company did you retire from?
Xerox Corporation.
How long were you there?
26 years.
Okay. And what did you do there?
I'm a crane operator. Big, these big cranes that,
Wow, I didn't know that.
Hmm.
What are you proudest of in your life?
Well, it's I guess it's a kind of hard. One thing, I met my wife, and through all of this going back and forth to church and whatnot, stuff, and that friendship and whatnot just kept growing. So I saw something in my wife, and it seemed like to me, I guess, the life I was living then, I knew that wasn't going to work because of what I was doing, So I made a switch, and there it was. Yeah.
Once you were married, you had 5 children,
5 children.
and one passed,
Yes. Duval.
Deval, yes, and then the other 4 are still very much involved in your life.
They remain.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how you look at family life in general?
Well, you look at the older people, and the old saying is, stop, look, and listen. That's it.
What words of wisdom would you like to share with younger men and women today?
Hush your mouth.
And do what?
Listen.
And listen. And what are they listening for?
Oh, different things. Character, how to live, and how to raise a family, and so on and so forth. It's a family affair, you know.
Can you explain that a little bit more? What do you mean by a family
Well,
affair?
family affair, once you had your children, you understand what I mean? Well, here come teaching. You would teach your family. You teach them how to live. The young ones, young kids and whatnot. You teach them how to live.
What's most important about being a deacon from the past and even today?
Well, well, the Bible, tells you what course to take. And it says, if a man, you're a man now, you're grown, you got children, you're raising up, desire the office of a bishop, you desire good work. And from then on, the Bible, you read the Bible, you study the Bible, you listen to the older deacons, and that's where your wisdom come in. If a man lack wisdom, ask God, he got it.
What would you say to someone who wants to be a deacon but isn't a deacon yet?
Well, listen. One word. All them other words don't matter. Listen. That's my motto.
When you look at the growth of the church from when you were at 181 Troop Street to today, what are the major gains that we have?
Oh, well, we've gained quite a bit, and since way back when in the 50s and whatnot, we gained a whole lot during that time. That's why our families are as smart as they are now, because of when you look at the family at the breakfast table.
Mm-hmm. Now, what started at 181 Truth Street as one single church has developed into a district of several churches.
Okay, well, I guess you don't want this, but the only way I can do it is that Ella Kemp was a man of many. And during that time, we didn't have a church building. Ella Kemp and his wife, Mother Kemp, they stayed upstairs. That was their home. And the downstairs was the church part. And that's how all of that come about. And they kept growing, and left there and went to another part, and left. It kept going, and even right in front of the house, used to be a railroad. Different things took place in that area, and it kept growing. And then, Ella Kemp was pastor. Ella Smith, and it kept growing until they made a move and said, "Now, in other words, we need something better than this." And that's where things started. Kept going, this one, that one. And then finally, one said, "Well, let's build." And from then on, it kept going until what it is now.
Now, we ventured the Church of God by Faith into Geneva, Syracuse, Buffalo, Soda Center, Webster, Detroit.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, it's kind of hard for me to explain that one. Is because, okay, now, a lady, a sister, I forget her name now, they started that in Detroit, in the pulpit. The first pulpit of that church in Detroit was a cardboard box. And what I mean by that, furniture came to Detroit in that box. So they kept the box. We didn't have enough money for a pulpit, so they kept the box because it was tall, and that was the first sermon come off of that box. That was Detroit. And after then, Ella Charles was the pastor, very big fella. And after so on, what happened, I don't really know what happened in detail, but he got sick and he passed away. And that's how the church in Detroit started.
Now, you are retiring as a deacon, but you were mainly, you were the chairman of the district deacon board.
Yes.
What does that actually mean?
Just what it said. The entire New York Western area that takes in all of those churches.
Okay. And what were your primary responsibilities?
Well, to see after the churches and the deacons and to see how they was getting along and how the congregation is growing and things like that of that nature. Nothing. It's just a made up thing, you know, where the individuals, you understand, did their part, and the young men did their part. They listened to the older ones. The older ones tried to teach them the best that they knew how. And that's...
What are some of your life experiences which you'd like to share?
Well, it's a lot of things that I like to share, but that's impossible. But I'd like to see it escalate. I don't know.
Is there anything that we not talked about that you'd like to talk about?
Well, no, not at this point, not because we don't know what's down the road. We just wait on God's move, and He tells us where to go and what to do, and that's it.
What do you plan to do in your retirement?
Just what it said, retirement.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we thank you for your years of service as chairman of the Northwestern New York District and also as a deacon at Adams Street, Greater Adams Street.
Thank you.
You've
Yeah.
Been a role model.
This deacon business is long. It's nothing out of order, but it's just one of those things. And I understand. I didn't know it myself. I understand that they call it Deacon Emeritus, meaning that you don't sit directly on the board, but you're round and about. And your responsibility is, if you would like, you'd be outside on wherever, you understand what I mean, and letting people know who's who, what's what. And emeritus, that simply means that you can sit in on the meetings, what they're having, emeritus. And naturally, I wouldn't interfere with the deacons' money, where they put money in, or counting money, or do whatever they do. But emeritus, you can be walking around doing whatever. You can watch. Like I said, you can sit in the meeting and listen to what's going on. And so we got 3 new ones in there now. I won't call their names, but there are 3 that are training now. And when the board feel as though that they are ready to get out there to start off, they give them the signal to go. Case closed.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Well, thank you for your time.
That's
And
right.
thank you again for your service. And it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, you too, everybody.